It was Friday evening when I packed my bag for a short trip to my cousin's place. She had been going through a rough time after her engagement fell apart, and I wanted to be there for her. My boyfriend Daniel wasn't thrilled about me leaving for the weekend, but he didn't say much, just a short, "All right, have fun." I sensed a hint of unease in his tone, but I brushed it off, thinking it was just his way of showing he'd miss me. The drive to my cousin's house was long, and my phone signal kept dropping. I tried calling Daniel to let him know I arrived safely, but the call wouldn't go through. By the time I reached, my cousin was already in tears, and comforting her took up the rest of the evening. We stayed up late, talking over cups of tea, with our phones mostly on silent. The next morning, I noticed several missed calls and unread messages from Daniel. He had texted things like, "Why aren't you answering?" and "Who are you with?" His tone seemed more suspicious than concerned. I replied quickly, explaining the situation, but he didn't respond. I assumed he'd read it later and calm down. Saturday was spent helping my cousin with errands and distracting her from her heartbreak. We went grocery shopping, cleaned the house, and even binge-watched a show she loved. My phone stayed in my bag most of the time because I wanted to be fully present for her. But when I finally checked it in the evening, I saw a flood of angry messages from Daniel accusing me of ignoring him on purpose. I called him immediately, but he didn't pick up. Instead, he sent a single text, "I know what you're doing." My heart sank. I didn't know where this was coming from. I tried calling again and again, but he refused to answer. The rest of the night, I barely slept, worried about what was going through his head. On Sunday morning, I decided to cut my visit short and head back early. The drive felt longer this time, my mind filled with anxiety. When I finally reached his apartment, I knocked, but he didn't answer. I used the spare key he'd given me months ago and found him sitting on the couch, arms crossed, glaring at me. Before I could speak, he said, "Don't bother lying. I know you were with someone else." I was stunned. My voice trembled as I asked him what he meant. That's when he pulled out his phone and showed me a photo someone had sent him, a blurry image of me at a cafe on Saturday afternoon. I recognized it instantly. That was me and my cousin, grabbing a quick lunch after shopping. But in the photo, my cousin's face was partially hidden by her hair, and from the angle, it looked like I was sitting with a man. I tried to explain, but Daniel didn't look convinced. His jaw was tight, and his eyes were filled with hurt. I offered to call my cousin right then, so she could confirm everything. He hesitated, then reluctantly agreed. When my cousin picked up, she was more than willing to explain where we'd been and why. She even sent him a selfie we took that same afternoon to prove it. Daniel's anger began to fade, replaced by an uneasy guilt. He admitted that a mutual acquaintance had sent him the picture, claiming they'd seen me on a date. Without asking me first, he'd believed them. I couldn't help but feel a deep ache in my chest, not because of the accusation itself, but because he had trusted someone else's word over mine. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of what had happened hanging between us. He apologized, but I could still see the doubt lingering in his eyes. Trust, once cracked, doesn't heal instantly. I told him I needed some time to process everything, and he nodded, understanding. That night, I went home alone. I lay in bed thinking about our relationship, how quickly suspicion had replaced trust, how easily a single misleading photo could unravel so much. I realized that love without trust is like a house without a foundation. Over the next few days, Daniel kept texting, trying to make things right. He promised he'd never jump to conclusions again, that he'd learned his lesson. I appreciated his words, but part of me couldn't forget how quickly he'd believed the worst about me. In the end, I knew it wasn't just about what happened that weekend. It was about the deeper cracks it revealed. Sometimes, it's not the lie that breaks a relationship, but the doubt that never needed to exist in the first place.